your lecture notes, I would say that you should title your lecture notes nonverbal communication. And the reason I stalled there was because someone just asked a question: can we have access to the audio? And the answer is yes, because I have a YouTube channel that I'm posting all of our lectures. Sometimes it's our lecture, sometimes it's Tuesday night's lecture. But if you are on YouTube and you see something like Jason Edgar's nonverbal communication lecture, you're in the audience. So, and with that, I'll probably say last names. I won't probably say first names if you chime into the chat box. I really don't want to like throw full names out there, but there will be some chat box discussions tonight. So as mentioned, we are talking about nonverbal communication. Define that in your notes. And defined in your notes is communication without words. This is not the same as a medical diagnosis of an individual that might have autism and they don't speak. That is not the same thing. That person would exhibit mannerisms of no verbal communication. You give somebody the silent treatment, that is no verbal communication. But trust me when I say it is nonverbal communication. Like, what is ghosting, right? So anyways, when we talk about nonverbal communication, we're talking about communication without words. You have that definition? And within that definition, we have two different types of nonverbal communication. And we're going to talk about those over the course of the night, as well as the final 7 percentages of, maybe I won't talk about verbal communication. I probably should though. Yeah, we'll probably talk about all the percentages tonight, but really we're going to focus on that nonverbal communication. And when I'm kind of like going through my notes in my head right now, the reason for that is because this whole chapter is dependent on percentages. And the amount of nonverbal communication that you exhibit, and I'm talking to you out there, is 93% of your communication. Write that down. There will be a midterm question at the end of the midterm here, whenever that comes up, 2 or 3 weeks, where you're going to have to tell me the percentages of communication. And one of these communication percentages is nonverbal communication is 93%. Oh, I agree, Jessica. Did that blow your mind? And it seems like we focus so much on the verbal communication. How many composition classes do you have to take? And those are just the written word. The other 7% is verbal communication, and we will talk about that tonight, but we're going to talk about that large chunk, 93%. Now, if you are blown away by that percentage, understand that when you know that that also, by the way, is in first place in the animal kingdom, and it is a distant second. Parrots are second, or any animal that can like regurgitate a word or two. For the most part, nonverbal communication is how we communicate to animals. That's how they communicate in the wild. For example, body language in the wild is predator forward, prey backwards. That's how you can almost kind of tell like which animal is kind of like predator prey. But domestically, think about how you communicate with your cat or your dog. How do they communicate to you that they're hungry? How do they communicate to you that they need to go outside or they are sick or whatever it may be? How do they communicate that they just caught a mouse? It's all 100%, unless you have a talking dog or a talking cat. And so maybe someone comes up to me and says, oh, for sure, Cynthia, like babbling, there's a lot of like vocal like non-fluencies there. Is that what I want to call it? Kind of like emblems. Well, also emblems isn't really correct either. But yes, babies are nonverbal communication, especially those diapers. How do you know whenever it's time to change the diaper of the baby, right? They definitely don't tell you verbally. And so we want to focus even more on that chunk of 93%. And we're going to do just a little bit of math. I know that it's not math class, but I want to break that percentage down into 2 different nonverbal communications. The first one is what we're going to lead off with tonight, and that is body language. Write that down in your notes. Body language communicating with the body, movement, gestures, and eye contact. I want to make sure you have the correct answer, the correct definition. Body language communicates based on body movement, gestures, and eye contact. Meaning that whenever you are delivering your speech, you're going to be graded on your gesturing. You're going to be graded on your stance. You're going to be graded on your eye contact because it's all part of nonverbal communication. You'll also be graded on your tone of voice, but we haven't got to that yet. We've talked already about how eye contact is the number one way to connect with your audience, is that visual connection. Even a handshake doesn't do good enough justice. And eye contact, of course, is nonverbal communication. With that said, I want a chat box question just to make sure you're paying attention, and it's a fun one. I want you now to put in to the chat box your favorite emoji. Hey, Jessica? Sorry for the pause. Let's check out your answers. Well, you walked right into that trap. Look at all your emojis. They're all faces. They're all faces. Faces communicate what you are experiencing computer mediatedly with the person you're sending your messages to. Which means, this is going to blow Gamaz away, by the way, that when you use emojis, you are boosting your communication. I mean, you have to have the 7% verbal. That's the text message. When you add emojis, it bumps it up to 62%. I'm not sure if I told you, but body language is 55%. Got an upside down. Well, yeah, look, it's all triangular now. And I really hope your mind isn't actually exploding. Or if you were face to face, you might tell somebody that they just blew your mind. But you can message that computer mediatedly as well. Selena's upside down. I think Mora, isn't that like a bashful one? I like that one too. Torres is laughing hysterically. Super sweet faces. Gamez, are you a millennial? Millennials love that one. Jan is crying rivers. Tima is a winky face. Okay, now did you see what I did there? Gamez put in the laugh emoji with the tears. I asked her if she was a millennial, and she said yes. Millennials generally use that emoji whenever they text. And how do I know that? I'm a millennial, and I love that emoji. Because what it does is that it softens your message. If you are laughing at the end of a message, that's not a serious message. It's a tonal shift. And it's a freaking emoji and an Apple phone. Now, you could have done anything. You could have put an orange up here. You could have put the dancing salsa lady. You also could have put down body movements, meaning or hand movements. If you want to, put down some hand movements as well. Put down anything that's going to have a hand or two hands. What's your favorite one of those? And those of you listening to the recording, obviously we can't see what you're doing, but what's your favorite emoji? What's your favorite hand gesture? And of course, we're talking about emojis that are on your phone. This isn't changing the percentage, but it is changing the body movement. The body movement now goes away from the head to the hands. You're giving somebody a high five. What's that, hang 10, I think that's called. I might be aging myself there. Thumbs up. Thumbs up is huge. Thumbs up's been around for as long as Facebook has been around. There was a time, I'm not sure if you remember, but Facebook was only thumbs up. Nowadays, you send a thumbs up, there's a very you got it, boss, end of discussion. And I want you to think about these too. Like, how do you use these emojis, and and I know this isn't public speaking, this is more communication, but how do you utilize these, and what do they communicate whenever they're sent to you? Like, what if someone sends you like an okay sign? That's very like passive. You're just saying, okay, walking away from the conversation. And you might send another message, sure. You might do the double tap there. But things like that can be very just in the conversation. Thumbs up. Thumbs up is not very inviting for another message, but maybe there isn't needed to be another message. Like, every text messaging conversation seems to be infinite unless you say something like, we are closing this loop right now. Okay, so let me get back to kind of like the general idea of what we're talking about here, and that we're talking about nonverbal communication, and it does take place computer mediatedly. But also, since it's a speech class, we need to think about what we can do as a public speaker. So within body language, I want you to define the term kinesics. Kinesics is the study of body movement. Maybe I can type that in. Like, this computer is so terrible that I'm even like nervous even typing stuff in. The study of body movement. And this is actually where people in physical education can kind of flex themselves, no pun intended. What is physical education? Physical education is kinesiology. Now, public speaking isn't like throwing a dodgeball, but it is a study of body movement. You have to stand up to give a speech. You have to use gestures in order to be more effective. You have to have your feet planted, you have your upper body still, and you have to make eye contact while also using notes. There's like a lot going on, much like you are holding the football and as a running back. Or if you have to do something in theater, you have to not only utilize your lines, say your lines, but you also have to work with a prop. Or what if you're in a play and you have to dance on stage and you're singing? Like, so all that stuff is just kind of like body movement and what is it saying? And that's what we're going to talk about tonight, is just a bunch of studies. And the first one is that kinesics, the study of body movement. And honestly, I've actually talked about all of my talking points so far. It is 55% of total communication. Emojis are computer-mediated communication, and it's because faces communicate lots of messages. Going back to the emoji discussion, you have a winky face. You have a laughing face. You might even have a serious face. You'll have a for real cry face, or you'll have the millennial LOL face. They all communicate different things, and they're all different faces. Much like those gestures, they're all using the hands, but they're definitely saying different things. Eye contact is the number one way to increase your credibility, and that is a goal. And within all these studies, this is what's great about this class, is I'm going to give you advice. I'm going to give you advice on kinesics. Is that whenever you have to give a speech, if you want to boost, the number one goal of a public speaker is to be credible. That's how you do it, is with eye contact. And it comes with practice. Caleb Williams didn't become a fantastic quarterback without practice. You're not going to become an effective speaker for your very first speech without a couple of practices. And that spontaneity that he has actually kind of transitions over to public speaking as well, where it's like you want to have that spontaneous delivery that allows you to have eye contact, that allows you to look confident even though the speech is on the tip of your tongue. That is the sweet area of giving a speech. But not only that, I would also say to smile. Write that down. I can already tell half my audience is cringing, because here I am, not only a guy, but a white guy, telling both men and women, hey, you should smile more. But I am going to tell you from an academic perspective that unisex, unigender, either person will boost their their appeal by smiling. You see this in like the service industry, that people who are positive, happier, make more eye contact, more gregarious, they have charisma, they have charm, and they do it with ease, they make more money in tips. Because the customer is like, I trust this person so much, I'm going to give them a little extra money. If you have a rough relationship with, like, let's say, your server at a restaurant because they're kind of, they're kind of like sharp, or they kind of have RBF, if you know what I'm referring to. You're like, well, I don't want to fund this, so I might give a lower tip. And yeah, I don't want to be the person to say, hey, you should smile more, but I will tell you that it is a benefit in public speaking. And you want an even more like infused benefit in smiling, it actually communicates good hygiene. Write that down. When you smile, it communicates good hygiene. The smile itself will probably reveal some teeth, and your teeth will likely be nice. They got to be got nice and orderly there. Not a lot of color on there. But if you have a nice smile, which you probably do, use it, because it will boost your appeal. And it will boost your hygienic, like information processing, because your audience doesn't have any other way to gauge your hygiene. They're not going to smell your armpits. They can't tell if you can wipe yourself properly. But if you give them a smile and your teeth are all in a row, that sort of transfers over like, oh, this person takes care of themselves. This person brushes their teeth. This person flosses. They could probably floss a little bit more. Am I right? And also, you know who agrees with me? Whoever raised you. Because they probably put some money into your grill. Did some of you have braces? You probably had braces and came from a family that probably couldn't afford braces. Why did they do it? Why did your family invest money, if they needed to, into your teeth? Because they know inherently what I'm teaching you now is that a smile will go a long way in this society. Culturally, if your culture does not smile a lot, they see it as a sign of weakness. I'm not sure what to tell you. Because the culture isn't English, the culture isn't Latino, the culture is capitalism. That's the culture. And the culture is appeal, and the culture is credibility, and that's what you get with smiling. And if you choose not to smile during a speech, that's fine. But after this class, I'm just telling you that you can net some benefits by smiling. And it's body language too. Most of those faces you gave me, you're already smiling at me computer mediatedly. Moving on. I have my notes on an old phone, by the way, just because I want to make sure I give you all this great advice. You're gesturing. So gestures, you are going to be able, you're going to be required to have gestures. And there's really no set principle for gesturing. You kind of do what feels right, but just do something. You can have purposeful gestures, but I'm going to encourage you not to worry about it. I am an effective public speaker, and I don't worry about what I'm doing whenever I'm gesturing. Maybe in my head, if I do something a little flamboyant, I'll be like, wow, not sure what I was doing there. But for the most part, it's just like, moving my hand from here to here because I feel like I am furthering a point. All right? You don't even have to have that type of symbolism. But what you can't do is look like you're holding two suitcases up there and you're not swinging your arms at all. There was an old Seinfeld episode, and it's actually very human communication, but when you walk, you swing your arms. And everyone does it. So when you don't do that, when you walk down the street and you're not swinging your arms, you are noticeable. When you deliver a speech and you are just very stern, like, I'm not going to swing my arms, I'm not going to gesture, it's kind of weirdly noticeable, and the audience is like, well, I didn't think I wanted some gesturing, but I'm kind of wanting some here. And it could be a little Goldilocks thing, right? Not too much, not too little, just right when it comes to gesturing. It also, here's a net benefit, it exerts nervous energy. Are you going to be nervous during your first speech? Gesture a little bit because it'll kind of fan out some nervous energy and it'll escape your body. I know it's kind of feng shui to think about that, but stress, nervous energy, expel it. Expel it with gestures as if you're like some sort of wizard. And last but not least is your stance. This is an important one. Your stance should communicate confidence. And I'm going to teach you how to do that. So your stance should communicate confidence through, I misspelled that word, by the way, in the chat box. feet planted, upper body still, and gesturing while using notes. I don't quite like that entire definition because I don't want you to gesture while holding your notes. Your notes are up there, but there should be a little lip on the podium that you can rest them on. And then there's your definition of effective stance. Feet planted, upper body still, gesturing while using your note cards on the podium. If you can do that while making eye contact, you will look like a speaker. You will look like a speaker that can be taken seriously, which means you will look like a credible speaker. Funny how that all ties together. Okay, so the next thing I want to do, any questions on kinesics? I want to move on to another study. And that study is going to be on artifactual communication. Write that down. Does anybody recognize that word, like artifact, artifactual, not necessarily art, but what sort of words does that conjure up in your mind? Torres, I'm going to blow your mind. Artifactual, the study of things, the study of objects. And I like history, but it can include modern day too. Because you know why? This is an artifact. This is a Jason Edgar artifact. If you've ever seen one of these on campus, chances are I'm within 50 yards of you. Because this is my water bottle. And when I lose this one, I'll just go over here and I got another one. Your cell phone is an artifact, meaning that it explains, it communicates things about you. So let me look at mine for a second. I'm actually recording while looking at it, but I have one of those things that holds cards right here. Might be a millennial thing, but that communicates. It communicates that I have a Discover card. It communicates that I have it's called a MasterCard, an Aviator card. I have my Morton ID. So without meeting me, you would know my name and you would know that I work at Morton. And let's be honest, you would have my credit card information. But it also has my driver's license, which communicates that I can drive. It communicates my height, communicates my gender. It communicates everything. But go a step further. Let's just say you can open my phone. What are the most important apps on my phone? What does it mean whenever music is on your front screen? What does it mean when Bumble is on your front screen? Or Tinder? Or the Red Lobster app? What's on the next screen? Those aren't as important to you. Or maybe you bunch them up, like if you're an Apple iPhone user. The way that I use it though is I don't have a lot of clusters. I think I do for like cash. Oh, that's another thing. Like if you go to my phone, you'll know where I do my banking. You'll know my social media accounts that I like. You'll know everything in my calendar, and none of this is verbal. I didn't tell you that I like Spotify. I didn't tell you that I like Olive Garden app or whatever, the Dunkin' app. But you got that with my phone. And that's what it communicated. You setting a home, what are you wearing? Are you wearing a hoodie from Michigan State? That's going to communicate something. And so if you didn't get the definition, artifactual is a study of objects. You could say the study of clothes and things. So Torres was on the right track there. Which means from a public speaking perspective, we should be worried about a couple of things. One, our dress attire, like what we're going to wear whenever we go to speak, because it will communicate, won't it? And it will communicate in that body language area because it's not tone of voice and it's not verbal. Your suit isn't a verbal communication. So the only thing left is body language. What do you communicate by what you're wearing? And with that being said, you can communicate high aspirations or you can communicate low aspirations. I would love to be wearing pajamas right now, right? Or what if somebody wanted to be shirtless or a male wanted to be shirtless? Or what if I wanted to deliver my Zoom in a suit? I actually have a really important Zoom in about a week or so. Not going to do it on this computer. I'm already thinking about what computer I want to do it on because imagine being in an important Zoom and then it craps out on you and you're doing great in the interview. Oh, crap. It can hurt your credibility because it kind of looks like you don't know your technology. If this class crashes, you all do not give me the benefit of the doubt. That's just a human thing. I really hope you guys are out there being like, oh, how sweet. How sweet he lost power. Some of you probably hit the road. So, again, all these things are communicating certain things. And I kind of went off on a tangent there, but we're talking about attire. Dress attire, ATTIRE. I will omit this from the grading process this semester. So let's just say Alvarez has to give a speech in my class on Thursday night next week. You can just wear whatever you want. Like, obviously, meet the societal standards, but you do not have to wear a suit on the day that you speak in my class. You can wear a hoodie and jeans if you want to. I will not make a pronouncement, okay? But we all know that if you're going to be speaking at a job interview, or if you are going on a first date, or if you've got to teach a lecture at your business conference, you need to dress appropriately, and there are a couple of things that you need to consider. First, simply wearing clothes that fit. You don't want to you don't want to look like you are kind of frumpy, and that comes from this show called What Not to Wear. There was a show on about 10, 15 years ago. I think it's on TLC. It was called What Not to Wear. And what they did was they went to people who had just lost every sense of credibility based on the way that they dressed and transformed them into someone that was credible based on what they were wearing. What an incredible show based on communication. So what we're going at here is that whenever you give a speech, you should be credible and comfortable. Write that down. Credible and comfortable. We already got that aspect of credible, wearing maybe like business professional clothing. If it's business casual, be business casual. But if it's business professional, dress as such, so you meet that credibility standard. But don't make it to where it's uncomfortable for you. If it's an important job interview and you got to button that top button and it's too tight, brother, go get another shirt. Because if everything is fitting perfectly and you're comfortable, you're meeting the two standards. Ladies, unless you feel like it is going to boost your appeal, I would, and some dudes don't wear high heels. Because that is just adding a degree of difficulty that you do not have to. And you might be great walking in heels, by all means, wear them. But man, if you're not great wearing heels and you kind of trip over your own heels, you kind of do that thing where you look like Bambi's mom on the pond. Or was it maybe just Bambi on the pond there? That old movie? That hurts your credibility. And you haven't even spoken yet. If your suit looks baggy, you're kind of losing credibility and you haven't even spoke yet. That's the crazy thing about wearing a suit. Let's look at the other direction. Let's say my speech is pretty good, but I want to get a little bit of a better grade, not in this class, but I want to kind of give myself an edge. I also have to meet societal standards for dressing. Why don't I boost my credibility by simply getting dressed and getting dressed appropriately? Because like I just said, you can boost your speaking credibility and appeal by simply getting dressed for the day credibly and comfortably. Speaking of suits, whenever you do wear a suit, and men and women can wear suits, Kamala Harris ran for president wearing suits. Hillary Clinton ran for president wearing suits. Women that are in industry wear suits. So do men. Donald Trump wears a suit all the time. He's considered one of the more credible people in the country. Pretty much everybody in Congress wears suits. And the reason for this is because it does promote shoulder strength. Write that down. Suits promote shoulder strength. Well, heck yeah, Cynthia. Every sort of like anecdote or story about like a homeless person trying to get a job, what stops them from getting the job is the attire, ATTIRE. Like give Will Smith a suit in that movie. And my God, Cynthia, I already told you I was tired tonight. Now you're adding stress to my life. That movie is a stress ball. Like anytime like he left one of those machines on a train or something, I'm like jumping out of my window. But I digress. There's also another Will Smith movie that I could talk about right now. Has anyone ever seen the movie Hitch? Hitch is kind of like what I do, except with a different title, because all Hitch does is teach you how to be your best self. What would that be? Put inflection in your voice. Smile. Wear some clothes. Be like, and they go into more detail in that movie, but all that is just boosting your appeal. And that's what you should do for public speaking. I am the Hitch of public speakers. And I want you to have your best self whenever you're up there. But also with good first impression, by the way, because they're hard to reset. Whenever you establish a first impression, it's really hard to back away from that. I mean, obviously you can reverse your impression on somebody, but first impressions do matter. And especially those of you that are dating or have ever dated, you're not wearing your worst outfit on the first date. And if you've ever been to a job interview, you are dressing appropriately. You don't need me to tell you that. I would also tell you with the suit, you need to write down the word symmetry. Symmetry is a fundamental axiom in art. Not even in art, but in beauty. In beauty, audiences want the left side of you to look like the right side of you. Basically the opposite of Two-Face. You need to be symmetrical. As if we were to cut you right down the middle, you would just look the same on one side as you do the other. And probably instinctually, you try to display yourself as symmetrical. And neither of these things you have ever thought about whenever you think about looks and attractiveness, right? You have your own beauty standards. I know what the male beauty standards are, right? But have you ever gave shoulders an extra thought? Have you ever given your outfit an extra thought and just made yourself look symmetrical? Folks, you can like wear an outfit that doesn't show any of your skin, but the way that it's like nice and dressed and put together, you just look professional. You look aesthetically pleasing. You don't have to be a supermodel wearing a swimsuit. You can be very conservatively dressed and be very aesthetically pleasing for your audience. But the key is to accentuate your shoulders and make sure that you're just kind of looking symmetrical. Now, symmetry doesn't always work in my direction. What about imperfections? Because in the 90s, there was this supermodel called Cindy Crawford, and she had a mole on her face. So how can she fit into my beauty standard of symmetry if one side has a mole and one side doesn't? So beauty, as you probably know, is in the eye of the beholder, but we can kind of like get really close to that beholder there if we can make ourselves look symmetrical and really accentuate our shoulders. Easy way to increase your credibility. I wouldn't wear hats either. I wouldn't wear ill-fitting clothes. The ill-fitting clothes are not going to give you a human look. Like, I haven't really given you the why of all this stuff. You need to look like a human. And whenever you wear clothes that, like, fit, you match the description of what the audience is expecting of a human. But if you're wearing, like, a large jacket and you look like you're from Soviet Russia, you look like you're wearing a parka, you look like a marshmallow. You don't look like a public speaker. You look frumpy. And I'm not meaning to talk to anybody in particular, but that's you if you're wearing ill-fitting clothes and giving an important speech isn't the time to wear that big parka. Your hat, not great. I don't see a lot of people wearing hats. Whenever Trump gives a speech, he doesn't wear his red hat unless it's outside. So Obama doesn't wear hats. The Pope wears a hat, but you're not the Pope. You were close to the Pope. You were born in Chicago, but that's good enough. The last thing is, it's not just about your clothes, but it is your things as well. On the day that you speak. So yeah, this is the transition over to maybe next week, just a little bit, a tiny, small little snippet. But next week, whenever you come to class and give your speech, all you really are going to have is yourself and your note cards, and that's about it. You do not need a water bottle. You are going to survive that 5-minute Sahara Desert climb of yours or walk through. You don't need a pen. You're not changing anything mid-speech because you've got to keep that flow going. Your notes, that's the list. And I went on and on about dress attire, but remember what I said about class. I omit it. You want to be frumpy for your speeches in this class? Be my guest. I might say something if you look like an actual marshmallow, though. Oh, did you hear that? Did you hear that sneeze there? Getting backed up. Okay, our next study of nonverbal communication is going to be chronemics. I'm on the tail end of Acosta. It's okay. Acosta's there for me. Acosta is in my corner. But it also depends on your audience in regards to what, Cynthia, if you could put it in the chat box. So anyways, chronemics, spelled the way it sounds, CHRONEMICS, is the study of time. Oh, we're going to get philosophical. We're going to get philosophical now. We're going to get linear. Oh, absolutely. And I got such an anecdote for this. One of the crowning achievements of my life was moderating a debate at the University of Arkansas between a U.S. federal government worker and the editor of High Times magazine. And basically the resolution was the United States should legalize marijuana. And this was like back in like 2011, whenever it wasn't legal anywhere. Turns out the person on the negative side of that argument ran for president in 2024. His name's Asa Hutchinson. He got roughly 1% of the vote. But anyways, Cynthia is saying you should dress for your audience. The guy that was supporting not legalizing marijuana, he looked like a grandpa wearing a suit. Meanwhile, the guy that was supporting legalization was wearing denim from top to bottom. He was wearing jeans and he had a jean jacket. And maybe he was wearing a t-shirt. But he sure as wasn't wearing a suit. Now, I will also say that his denim was well fitted. Had some nice looking jeans on. And since the jacket was well fitted, shoulder accentuation, and even though it was denim from head to toe, symmetrical. You're going to give a speech at an overnighter, wear pajamas. So when we talk about the study of time, it's not that difficult in regards to having to memorize time or anything. That would be kind of difficult. But anyways, just understanding that you need to be on time. So write that in your notes. You need to be on time for your speech. Going back to Alvarez. Alvarez has to give a speech, and she's going to give it on Thursday night, hypothetically. She's supposed to be there at 6 o'clock. It's 6:09. What's going on here? In this class, I will count off. That is something you can control. You probably can't control your attire. You probably can't buy yourself an Italian blend suit over the next week. You probably have dress clothes, but I'm understanding of the fact we even have like a clothing drive because maybe some students don't have clothes. Attire is okay. Transportation to the event, you need to figure that out. That's what your liaison is in charge of anyways, and getting there on time. Get there early if you can. Because think about the credibility that you get when you show up early or when you show up right on time. This person is serious. This person is credible. And that is a goal of public speaking. And you also like that as somebody you're dating is constantly on time or early. And, my God, be on time for your job interview. Be on time, be early for the job interview. Not suspiciously early on any occasion. That kind of feels a little creepy. I'm not sure you should be 40 minutes early to your first date. Might be your last date. So really try to be on time. Because being on time or not being on time really zaps your credibility. Anybody in here have kids? You got a babysitter that is kind of late one time. They ain't your babysitter anymore. They have lost even the credibility of being a babysitter because there's not much credibility you need. You just kind of sit there and watch the kids. Make sure they don't turn the stove on. But one of the standards is being on time. And if you can't do that, you can't watch my kids. It's not even part of the babysitting ritual. And much like being on time isn't part of your verbal. So think about that. You show up on time and well-dressed. You are boosting credibility and you haven't even started speaking yet. But there's another aspect of time that I want you to regard, and that is speaking within the time frame. You have a time frame of a 5-minute speech. You need to hit that 5-minute target. Your liaison is depending on you to hit your target. If you are requested to speak for 5 and you speak for 15, that's going to irritate your liaison and it's going to irritate your audience because there's expectations. What was the event a couple of days ago that had so many things? Oh, the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl at the beginning is like the coin toss, the introductions, America the Beautiful, Star Spangled Banner. And it is supposed to be a well-structured event so they can get those advertisements in. So this guy named Charlie Puth sings the national anthem, and he sings it for 2 minutes. But let's just, because that's what he was committed to do, 2-minute national anthem. But let's just say, oh, Charlie wants to take up some time, do an 8-minute America the or Star Spangled Banner. That's not going to fly. That's going to, and that also meets another kind of disadvantage there. You speaking over your time is going to affect the other events behind you. And that's really going to irritate a lot of people. So an irritation is not an appeal. All this stuff that I'm talking about tonight is appeal. And that's the reason why you are practicing it. You're practicing your stance. You're practicing your gesturing. You're practicing your speech generally just so you can have a good delivery and make eye contact. So speak within your parameters and be on time, and that's what you have to worry about with chronemics. All right? So does anybody have any questions about those 3 studies of nonverbal communication? Alvarez, go ahead and put it in the chat box. We're not done with our lecture just yet. We have a couple more notes. While she's typing that into the chat box, I'm going to take 1 second. Hopefully you didn't see me change. I just changed out of my hoodie. I'm sweating. Sweating like a stuck hog. That's what we say back in Missouri. Is there a certain color of clothing that audiences typically dislike? Hey, Kim, there will be an audio recording, but from my end, I'm not getting any technical difficulties. So I can't necessarily engage with everyone getting like the recording, but we can communicate after class for sure, okay? It's not the end of the world if you don't get the lecture, but we can communicate via email as well. Alvarez, so I don't know, like whenever Trump wears, he wants to be credible, he wears a navy blue suit, white shirt, and a red tie. And I tried that before, that exact combo, and there's something very powerful about it. But I will say one thing, Jessica, broadly, is that darker colors will thin you out. Not you, but the general person. Think about that. Like whenever you're wearing white, it doesn't really cover up a lot of the, insecure parts, right? But whenever you wear black, it kind of does thin you out a little bit. But that's also kind of to assume that audiences want a thinner speaker. That's not necessarily the case. That would be a question that I would ask ChatGPT. Because, or any sort of artificial intelligence, because you've already done the critical thinking. Think to yourself, what do you think audiences would want? And then confirm it with artificial intelligence, and based on, the internet knowledge or the AI knowledge, it will give you a pretty decent answer. And here's the best part about using AI. You can take that answer or you can't. Because when we ask AI questions, it's either for writing advice or practical advice. And that right there, Jessica, is practical advice. And you're not killing your brain cells by asking it that question. I've been sick the past couple of days, and I wanted to know what day I was on, like sick wise. I asked ChatGPT. I'm not gonna think to myself like, oh, because I'm not a doctor. I'm just kind of going on a pro AI rant here where it's like, not everything has to have my critical decision making abilities there. Yes, you should always critical think before you make any sort of AI collaboration. But having said that, I'm not a doctor. What medicine should I be taking right now if I have a standard medicine cabinet? And if Jessica wants to collaborate with AI to enhance her message by asking a very thoughtful question, you know what I've done before, Jessica? I've given AI a picture of my wardrobe and said, make 12 outfits based on this wardrobe. And by the way, I have these color ties, and it'll do it. It'll solve whatever problem you have. It will not practice for you. It will not relay notes for you. And unless you practice your speech, AI will not let you speak with conviction. That's the reason why as a teacher, I'm very pro AI, because it can enhance your message. But until there's a replica bot of you that you can replace, that's going to pass the Turing test with me, that's you, gal or girl or guy up there giving the speech, and you're going to have to practice. Okay, so anyways, I know it's a great idea. Thank you. I'm full of them. Okay, so anyways, now I want to transition to 38% tone of voice. And the reason I get that percentage of 38% tone of voice is because of the percentages you've already heard. Remember the percentages I've told you tonight. 7% verbal. And by the way, this is you on a regular basis, no matter what you're doing. Honestly, you're doing it right now. And 38% tone of voice. That tone of voice is nonverbal communication. Imagine you hear someone speak and you say, oh my God, you sound scared. They didn't tell you they were scared, but you can hear that in their voice. There's a certain timbre in their voice. Because of that, tone of voice actually outweighs the words that you say by like 6 times. There's a phrase that people always say, actions are louder than words. So is the tone of voice. And in fact, the phrase actions are louder than words, that's what we're talking about tonight. Your body language is 55% and your verbal is 7%. And back to the emojis. It's not really emojis though. It's the way in which you type. And I'll probably just give the examples here. But if you want to boost your tone of voice in computer-mediated communication, you could do that too. These are two way different messages. Look at this. Okay. Even with like the lower syllable, like the what am I trying to say? Like it's a smaller letter. It's not capitalized. Okay. It seems small. It seems meek. Now watch this. Gonna blow your mind, Gamez. It's the exact same message, but it is enhanced 31% by being in all caps and having exclamation points. Then you do this. Same word, but now the person's confused. And because they say okay, they're screaming it. They're screaming it and they're confused. And for those of you at home, it's the letters okay, but with a question mark and an exclamation point. It sounds like the person's very confused, very shaken. There was something else I wanted to say about that. Oh, and then here's another one. This is probably the weakest one of all. Have you ever sent somebody a K? Like that is just very little communication, right? Thank you, Kimberly. Oh, Kimberly, you're back. Oh, man, we're getting some strong affirmation here. If my wife sent me a K like that, I am calling her and I am saying, what is wrong with you? Because we all know I am a very thin millennial here. My feelings are on the line, and I need you to be an enthusiastic affirmation of what I'm doing right now. I need an okay. Yeah, KK's fine. Don't do 3Ks. And LOL and all those things, those are not tone of voice. In fact, laughing out loud, LOL, that's body language. The only other one I would do on here is I'm not going to do WTF, but I am going to do this one. I want the people in my chat box to say that in their head. Do you upspeak whenever you do at the end? If I type that, the person that gets it communicates, what the hell? And the voice, even in their brain when they're thinking about it, goes up, which proves there's tone of voice in computer-mediated messaging. And with that, if you incorporate those things in your text messaging, you're boosting it by 38%. The emojis boosted by 55%, and your text message is the other 7%, and then you're communicating at a 100% clip. Here's another thing. If you communicate a lot with emojis, and you do that thing with 3 exclamation points or the exclamation point and the question mark, and you use a lot of emojis, like I said, you also like it whenever other people do it. And you dislike it whenever you have somebody that you communicate with and they don't text message or they don't send emojis a lot. I would think about my mother-in-law. I have to communicate with my mother-in-law. I'm somebody who uses emojis, probably 1 every 2 text messages. She never does. And because of that, not my favorite person to text. My wife, on the other hand, very fun texter. You probably have fun texters that you text all the time. And what makes them fun is adding communication. And maybe they send you memes, and maybe they send you GIFs. And all these things are, they make you laugh, or they have emotional appeal. And I would also add that you could do this on the group chat as well. In fact, my entire lecture has been on a group chat, which means we have been computer-mediatedly communicating all night in a group chat with tone of voice and body language and verbal communication. Holy cow. Okay, so with that being said, I want to talk about the speaker's voice. This is on pages 80 through 83. And when we study the voice, that's called paralanguage. Paralanguage. Like, it's what accompanies our words. You are not just a regular voice. You are inflection, you are volume, you are rate, you are enunciation, you are pronunciation, you are sarcasm, you are gusto, all those things that can communicate your voice, and that's the reason why it creates a lot of communication. Here's your net benefit, because we know that all of our studies have a net benefit. You need to write this down. Inflection increases your appeal. Meaning that whenever I'm communicating to you, and at the beginning, whenever I needed that little pep talk from everybody, what made me kind of think about, oh, this is going to be draining, is the idea that I had to go on a 57-minute lecture and have inflection. That is some circus act stuff right there, folks. I guess you are paying for it, so maybe I should be a dancing monkey a little bit longer. But that's what's exhausting, is putting inflection in my voice and maybe boosting my volume a little bit so you can hear me. That's getting the message across. But what entertains the audience is inflection. Your favorite singers have inflection. Bad Bunny has inflection. Taylor Swift has inflection. And that's probably why they're your favorite singers. If a singer doesn't have a very nice voice, doesn't put a lot of inflection in it, you probably don't listen to them. Singers have range. You don't need to have range to be a speaker, but you need to have some inflection. Now tell me in the chat box, what does it mean when you don't have inflection? What is that term called when you don't have inflection? Anybody else want to take a guess? Joanna stealing Cynthia's answer like a thief in the night. And Jessica explains it. And Joanna laughs. Cynthia's correct. Monotone is no tone. That is bad. Look, you've already lost Tima's attention if you don't have some notes in your voice. It's the only thing that entertains your audience. They can't look at their phone. They have to be a good audience member. So they're sitting there listening to you. The only thing that is entertaining them besides the purpose of your speech is the inflection in your voice. So give it to them. Now, it does not have to be a high pitch. It just has to be something. Just raise your voice a little bit. Give yourself some low notes and some high notes. You can do it. Don't be monotone. Okay, so essentially the rest of the tone of voice chapter is going to be just defining some terms. So rate is the speed of the speaker. Cynthia, have you ever seen True Detective Season 1? For those at home, she typed in Matthew McConaughey. I'm assuming you're saying Matthew McConaughey has a great voice, right? Tell me who you think has a great voice in the chat box if you want to. Season 3 is okay. I think Season 1 is television gold, television masterpiece. And it's because of Matthew McConaughey. That character is so awesome. Angelica has the standard Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman has a very appealing voice because of the bass. There's probably other things. So I typed in rate. That's kind of like your speed of the speaker. Your volume is the loudness of the speaker. You can deal. Yeah, he was the voice of God. When you're the voice of God, like that says something. If you were cast as that. I'm not going to be cast as the voice of God. I don't think so. I got kind of a raspy voice. Think about your phone, how if you're listening to a podcast, you can speed up the rate or you can turn down the volume. Both of those, okay, so for rate, a conversational rate, and your volume whenever you speak needs to be a little bit louder. You really think I speak this loud all the time? I feel like I'm shouting, and I'm probably losing my voice. But you got to hear me. The recording has to hear me. I don't have a microphone. I would rather not have a microphone. I don't want to invite technical difficulties. Liam Neeson is good. I freaking loved The Naked Gun. He goes, "What are you in for? Man's laughter? That must have been some joke." Please tell me you watched The Naked Gun. Oh my goodness, that movie was hysterical. Anyways, off subject. Acosta keeps throwing me off subject. Okay, what were we talking about? You're talking about The Naked Gun. It's a movie. I didn't just say naked for no reason. It's a movie. Rate, volume, inflection. Inflection, we never really define inflection. That's the mix of pitch. Terrible name for a movie, I agree. We've already talked about inflection. Now let's talk about enunciation. Sounding out syllables. Here's another thing. You can't be a lazy speaker. Meaning you can't really say things like hanging out while you speak if you want to be business professional. You need to enunciate. And my advice is in your brain, kind of think that you're over-enunciating. Because if you think that you are over-enunciating, the audience is thinking, hey, this is a pretty good speaker. They're pretty good at enunciating. I can hear all the words. And that's the whole point of enunciation. It's a word. You need to say it. Because that word is a symbol and the audience needs to know what you're saying. I mean, I could go back to Bad Bunny and the vast majority of the audience doesn't know what he's singing, but that's not the point. The point is the music, right? And even if the point was to listen, Bad Bunny would not be a good singer if he didn't enunciate. I was actually with two like Hispanic women during the halftime show, and they were like, I can't really understand him either because I think he was like mixing in Puerto Rican. Like, don't worry, conservative America, we can't understand him either. I think that's hysterical. But anyways, and then pronunciation. Don't get me wrong, and I do not want to start anything political here. I freaking loved that halftime show. Loved it. Okay, so. Because it did so much more, like, and it's been like kind of weird half times over the past 2 or 3 years. They're really making it into a production. It's not for the people at home. It is for the people at home. It's not for the people in the stadium. The people in the stadium can barely see it. But I mean, I'll just say right now, like I love Lady Gaga. I mean, not like she's my favorite, but it's like, oh, Lady Gaga is singing right now. Let me pay attention. And then I was like, whenever it happened, it was like, oh, is that Cardi B right there? So that was interesting. Pedro was in there. This is stuff like that. It should not be political. He's saying things like, love yourself and, well, not love yourself, but all the stuff. I don't want to get off on a tangent. We're talking about pronunciation. Saying it correctly. Nothing political about it. It was fine. Great. In fact, I already have an idea for next year. Jelly roll. So you got to say the word correctly because you can't botch that word. If you say a different word or you bumble the word where it's not even a word, you say something like birtation, that's not even a word, that's going to communicate bad grammar and bad intelligence. So no, you don't want to do that either. So saying the word correctly might mean that if you have verbal citations in the future, that you need to likely practice those words, practice those last names, okay? If I'm being honest, I'm probably not going to talk about verbal communication tonight because we've went long enough. Well, I only have just a couple of things. Yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. Cynthia, great question, and it is the 5 steps to speech success. Step 4, practice. The answer to Cynthia's question is practice. If I need to get better at Spanish so I can understand Bad Bunny, I need to immerse myself in Spanish. I need to practice it. If English is your second language, for starters, understand that that is my job to mitigate the standards to where you meet a particular standard of skill, but you are not going to probably speak as well as I do. That's okay. I'm not grading you on my scale. My scale is very high, at least I think it is. In my opinion, it is. But practicing is what's going to get you to that level, even if English is your second language. Stutterers have told me that my class has cured their stutter. But what happens with stuttering is like you get ahead of yourself and you start to stutter. Practicing allows you to realize what's coming up next. And even if English is your second language, Cynthia, practicing means you kind of have a roadmap, not a word order, but a roadmap of the words you want to use when you want to use them when you give a speech. And then when it comes to conversational Spanish or conversational English, you got to go out with a friend and just sit at a coffee shop and just speak English. Like you would tell somebody like me who needs to learn Spanish, you need to immerse yourself in it. Okay. So, let's finish up our whole of communication discussion tonight and talk about verbal communication. Verbal communication is whenever we use words. Not a Q in the middle of it, Jason. Actually, a really great transition question, Cynthia, because we're talking about words, right? You got to say the correct words. So here's what I'm going to say about your verbal communication. Besides the fact that it's 7% of your overall communication. And I will tell you, Cynthia, that quality grammar does increase your appeal. We see this in public speaking. We see this in interpersonal relationships. Oh, that person sounds smart. How do they sound smart? Did they tell you they're smart? I can tell you I'm smart. I'm probably dumb. The way that people communicate intelligence is through quality grammar when they speak. So you'll have to practice grammar if grammar isn't your best. And it's not like the grammar of like a composition of a fragment. It's just like whenever you speak, even if it's extemporaneous, it just seems like the words are flowing very well. And it can boost your intelligence, which means it boosts your appeal. And it works in job interviews and it works in relationships. So if this is if you want this to be a net benefit for you and English is your second language, it is going to require practice because practicing will get you to a phase of quality grammar. I would also tell you that you should not worry about a word order. Write that down. Don't worry about word order. There's no reason to. Folks, tonight, I gave a lecture on nonverbal discussion, on nonverbal communication. We talked about True Detective for a little bit. We talked about the 2026 Super Bowl halftime show. We went off on tangents. But you know what we didn't do? We didn't lose our purpose. I discussed every aspect of nonverbal communication, 5 different studies. All the percentages match up, gave you net benefits on all of them. I'm going to try to give you some last bit of advice before we go. But I am not dependent on a word order. Do you see my script? Look at my script. It's nothing. I have nothing up here. It's all in the dome. But you got to be confident that you can communicate the main ideas that are on your note card. And it does take practice. But I'm telling you that if you practice, you can meet that threshold, even if English is your second language. And here's the best part. It's gonna be the reason that we end our lecture tonight. We're gonna cap with this. Are you worried about your uhs and ums? Are you worried about uhs and ums in your speech? Guess what the solution is? Practice. Practice will smooth out your rate. It will smooth out your buffering time, and you will reduce your ums. It won't reduce them at all, like totally 100%. Oh, did I lose coverage? Something happened just for a second, but I think I'm back. Everybody okay? If we missed something there, it is totally fine. I can't quite remember what I was referencing. Oh, practicing will reduce your ums. We kind of spazzed out there just for a second. I was talking about basketball. My favorite basketball player tonight is going to miss some free throws in the NBA. But my favorite player still might win. If my favorite player misses 15 free throws out of 18, that is a terrible performance and he's going to lose. Let's cross-apply that to you. You practice. You come into my classroom. You're confident because I'm going to be a nice guy. You have some uhs or ums, but you get through your speech, you're going to get a good grade. But if you go in there and you are this and that and awkward silence, lots of vocal non-fluencies, you are communicating that you are unprepared. You're not going to say it verbally. You say it with the uhs and the ums. It happens every time. You want to reduce your ums, you got to practice. Much like my favorite basketball player, if he wants to make all of his shots, he ought to practice. Any questions about not only nonverbal communication, but verbal communication as well?